not sure whether to have a C-section or try for a vaginal birth. I get it. I get why natural birth might seem like this frightening thing. I get why you might still be trying to decide whether to go for the natural birth or have a C-section. I get that if you're even a VBAC mom and you're still trying to figure out, do you go for the VBAC or do you go for another C-section? A lot of moms who have decided to go with a C-section, it's because they say, I don't want to put myself through that again. It was so painful last time. I just don't want to put myself through that. That's what natural birth is. It's pain. It's fear. It's not having control of your body. It's leaving your dignity at the door. It's multiple vaginal exams. And I'd much rather have a C-section than endure all of that. Well, here's the thing. Here's how I came to the realization that I wanted to have a completely natural birth and not even do it in the hospital, but do it at home with my first baby. I was the most obnoxious kid in my anthropology class, the college kid, saying that I wanted to be drugged up, cut open, and have a tummy tuck. That was basically my idea of what I wanted my birth experience to be. And then when I decided that I actually wanted kids, I realized I didn't actually want a C-section, because having a C-section meant major abdominal surgery. I understood that there were now risks. A lot of my friends had ended up having C-sections, so I saw how long and painful their recovery was, and I saw what they were struggling with, and I realized I don't actually want that, and I don't actually want to be in the hospital, and like that's just going to be even worse. So then I was afraid to even get pregnant at all. And I was thinking, as I was trying to wrap my head around the fact that I wanted to be a mother, it's like I could do this for one day. It's just one day that I'm going to have this horrific pain and then it will be over. But then I also understood, like I was Googling about how to avoid an episiotomy, but I understood that I had to have vaginal exams and I had to wrap my head around that. I had to wrap my head around the fact that I was going to have to leave my dignity at the door. So I had all of these fears that came up just trying to get the courage to get pregnant. And then it happened. I got pregnant. It was a complete surprise. And suddenly I realized I had run out of time in working through my fears. Like this was happening. This baby was coming out one way or the other. And I really did not want this baby coming out being cut open. Like I did not want that. I also really didn't want to be having my vagina cut. I really didn't even want anybody to touch me. In fact, I thought the most ideal birth scenario would be as if I didn't have any pain at all and I could just stay home and then my baby would come out and it would be like those orgasmic births that I used to mock and laugh at because I didn't think that they were a real thing. Trust me, they're a real thing. In fact, there's a book called Orgasmic Childbirth. And the fact is that this can actually happen. You can have an ecstatic experience. I had an amazing empowered birth, and I've now helped moms who had C-sections and inductions and trauma in their previous birth experiences go on to have that same experience, to be able to see that actually birth can be this most healing and transformative and beautiful experience for moms. You don't have to leave your dignity at the door. The way that we've been taught how to think about birth, what we've been taught, what the whole culture basically says this is how birth is, the mom groups, the childbirth classes, the books are even guilty of this. Movies are guilty of this. And the medical system is especially guilty of this, is that birth, as it is called natural in the hospital, it's not natural birth. I said it. Most of the natural childbirth information out there will not help you to have a true natural birth. When you think natural birth, you think, oh, my body's just going to do it. I'm just going to go into the hospital and I'm going to have my baby and nothing's going to happen to me unless it's medically necessary. I hate to break it to you, that's not what happens. So I get it that you're trying to figure out between natural birth and a C-section. And the C-section looks pretty good compared to natural birth. But here is the difference. With a Natural birth, you have medical control. You have multiple vaginal exams. Those exams can be incredibly traumatically painful. In fact, I had a cervical check that I actually would describe as horrifically painful. It was the most horrifically painful part of my home birth. And it ended up stalling my labor, stopping it completely. And I sent the midwife home, sent the doula home, and I went to sleep. And I rested. And for 16 hours, nothing happened. I went back into labor. I had a 5-hour labor where I had very little pain. In fact, I thought I was in early labor the entire time. I thought I was going to have my baby in a few days. I thought that I was just going to have labor fizzle out again. Even though I could start to see myself getting into that labor trance, I still didn't think I was far enough along. So when I suddenly hit transition 5 hours into my labor, when I was in the pool and my waters released, I was like, before my waters released, oh my God, this is active labor. I wish I had the gas. I wish I was in the hospital right now to have the gas and air, because this is really, really intense. And I don't want to do this for 8 hours. Now, when you get to that point, I have other videos on the crash course to natural birth, and I talk about transition. This is your body flooding with adrenaline to wake you up. And then what happens is that you're done. Transition is the fastest, easiest part. It's about 2 hours to 2 minutes. Mine was 2 minutes. So 2 minutes of, I don't want to do this anymore. Suddenly my water's released. Baby's head was right there. And then like she was out in the water in like 10 minutes. The midwife almost didn't make it back. And it was the most beautiful, empowering experience. And I didn't have any pain aside from that little bit of pressure. And I wouldn't even call that pain. This is what natural birth actually is. It's not having every bone in your body broken at the same time. No, you're not pushing out a watermelon. Your body is designed to accommodate birth. You are flooded with endorphins when you do not mess with it. This is the key. This is how I came from just cut me up and give me a C-section to I'm planning a home birth, is when I did this. When I got back from that first prenatal appointment, I had been told I was going to the hospital, and I was just filled with this dread and anxiety because I did not want anybody to touch me. I didn't want to leave my dignity at the door. I said, I just want to stay home. And then I'm like, well, if I want to stay home, I'm not going to have the drugs, and I'm going to have to feel this. So how do I make this a positive experience so that I don't have very much pain? This is then when I researched how to have a painless home birth. And then I Googled and I found some blogs, and I came across something that just revolutionized everything that I had ever heard about childbirth. And that is the fear, tension, pain cycle. So this book was written decades ago when your mother and your grandmother were still having babies. This is the book that was around. Now, I don't recommend that you try to go and get this book and go and read it. Childbirth Without Fear is incredibly dense. It's very interesting, though, because in this book, there is a story that is shared by Grantley Dick Reed, the doctor that discovered the fear, tension, pain cycle. Here is how it went. There was a small village, and he attended this birth of this woman. And he kept trying to give her the chloroform because back in those days, they used chloroform to alleviate the pains of childbirth. But she kept pushing his hand away. She didn't want it. And afterwards, he asked her, why didn't you take the chloroform? And she's like, well, it didn't hurt. It wasn't supposed to, was it, doctor? This woman had not been told that childbirth was going to be painful. And because she was told that she wasn't told that it was going to be painful, she didn't expect it to be painful, and she was able to relax during it and let her body open, and childbirth did not hurt. And then he continued to follow this path. He noticed that there were other women that would just squat in the field. They'd birth their babies and they'd carry on with their work. And he's like, there are women out there who are not afraid, who are not tensing up, who are having these easy births, and they don't even feel any pain. In contrast to what he was witnessing in his own community with his own birth culture and what women were experiencing, which would be pain and trauma, often complications, and he started to dig into this. And this is what I learned about when I was reading these blog posts about natural childbirth, is the fear, tension, pain cycle, which is basically boils down to this. If you are afraid, you tense up, your body then is feeling that resistance, and then it hurts. Your body needs you to not have that fear. So again, when you have that fear, tension, pain cycle and you don't tense up, birth doesn't hurt. So to answer your question about whether you should have a C-section versus having a natural birth, first of all, understanding about the fear, tension, pain cycle will help you. But here's one more thing that you need to really understand before you even go for that C-section or fall into multiple different natural birth traps that can lead to this fear, tension, pain cycle not working the way it needs to, and then you end up tensing up, you end up having complications, you end up getting more interventions. The cascade of interventions happens, so you induce your labor, or you have Pitocin, or somebody breaks your waters, which is also a problem, or they do a number of things that cause birth to hurt and be more traumatic. Your labor slows down, you end up failing to progress, you have a C-section. Let me just tell you why you don't want that C-section and why you don't want to fall into those natural birth traps. And that's this. Your first birth is the most important birth of your entire motherhood journey. That first experience is crucial, not only to your health of your body, but your mental health, your emotional health, your bond to your children, your bond to your partner, how you see yourself, how you show up in the world, how you advocate for yourself going forward. It's all tied into this birth. We have a 45% birth trauma rate. That's reported numbers. Birth trauma is devastating. It can affect future pregnancies. When you are in trauma, you are in fear. You are making decisions based on fear, which means that you are more susceptible to falling into more traps. Birth trauma also just really, really sucks, okay? You relive the experience of your birth over and over and over again, and you wonder, you try to make sense of it. You're trying to feel happy that you have a healthy baby, because healthy baby is all that matters, right? But you matter too. And when you have that traumatic experience, you get triggered very easily. Sometimes it's a trigger of the kind of birth that you had that you really didn't feel comfortable with, and it upsets you all over again, and you start crying. You can be watching something on TV, and then all of a sudden, a scene shows up and it's like, this woman is failing to progress, or she's pushing too long, and then suddenly you find yourself unable to watch anymore, and you're running to sob in the bathroom. I didn't even have a C-section, but some shows, some scenes would trigger me. And I would just relive that moment over and over and over again when I thought that I was going to get pushed into a C-section. And I would just break down sobbing until I got the help I needed to deal with my trauma, which is another story I'll tell for another time. But if you do want to know more about how to heal from birth trauma, I do have resources on that. I have resources on so many things in healing and birth and natural birth. If you have any questions, or if there's a topic that you want me to speak on, all you have to do is message me at carly@empoweringmomsbirth.com. Send me an email, and then I will get back to you within 1 to 2 days, and I will help you. I'll send you a resource to help you to be able to have that natural birth, or to heal your trauma, or to plan your next birth. Whatever you need, just know I probably got it. Actually, I also have over 900 resources that I didn't create myself. So I can give you that, or I can tap into my network and give you more support that way. So all you have to do, if you've got a question, is send it to carly@empoweringmomsbirth.com, and I will help you. Anyway, let me just get back to the story here. It's that when you have that traumatic experience, your first birth matters so much, because if you end up having a C-section and then later you realized you were tricked, maybe you watched one of my cesarean traps videos, or maybe you came to the realization on your own that that C-section wasn't necessary. Maybe you feel that deeply, that you could have had a natural birth, but somehow you didn't fight hard enough. And you're like, I didn't fight hard enough, or I didn't know what I know now. And if I had known what I know now, I would never have had that C-section. And you're trying to have a natural birth. Let me just tell you how much harder it is to try to get that when you've had a C-section or more than one cesarean. If you had more than one C-section, it is even harder. And it feels like fighting an uphill battle. And this is why I teach moms, especially moms who've had multiple cesareans, how to get that natural birth experience that they want without having to fight, beg, compromise. They don't give up. They don't crumble under pressure. They don't leave their dignity at the door. They actually get their beautiful natural birth that they deserved the first time. So if you're a first-time mom and you're trying to decide, do you go the natural route or do you go with the interventions? Do you go with a C-section or an induction or epidural? I'm just going to tell you that when you mess with the physiological process, you're more likely to get a C-section. And if you get a C-section, then it's going to be harder for you to try to get the natural birth next time, not because your body's broken, but because of the way that our birth culture and our medical system operate. And I do have the tools that can help you do that if you've already gotten to that point. I've also written a book that helps you, if you're a first-time mom, how to avoid falling into those traps and plan a birth so that your first birth, you never have to experience trauma. And then in the next chapter after that, it also shows you the roadmap if you have had trauma before. So again, if you want me to send you a resource, if you want some help, some support, send me a message, carly@empoweringmomsbirth.com. And I will help you with that, because I am committed to you having a beautiful, natural, empowered birth. You deserve it. It is the most transformative experience that you will ever have. And it's so devastating when you don't get it. Let me just tell you, I've had birth trauma and it sucked. And then I learned what I needed to learn to be able to get that beautiful home birth. And the same thing for a lot of my friends and the women that I've helped. They've had these horrible traumatic experiences and they're like, I just want to try. I just want to be able to get this. This is my last baby. I've had 3 C-sections and they keep telling me I have to have a 4th C-section, but I know I can do this. And why won't they let me? I show them the way so that they can actually get it. And then when they come out the other side, it's just magical how they transform. And I want that for you too. So if you're a first-time mom, please don't. I'm just going to tell you, please don't go for that C-section. Go learn what you need to learn about natural birth. I have a lot of information on my YouTube channel. You can like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Go check out my other videos. See what I'm talking about the natural birth traps that you want to avoid. Learn how beautiful and empowering birth can be for you so that you never have to experience trauma. And if you're trying to plan for a VBAC right now, I have a lot of videos on VBAC specifically to help you, including one on how to get a VBAC after 3 cesareans, where I share a story on that. So don't think that just because you had a previous cesarean that you have to have another one. There is a way. Even if you are high risk, there is a way. I have stories on moms who had type 1 diabetes and gestational diabetes and were 41 years old, chronic high blood pressure, history of preeclampsia. They went on to even have vaginal births after cesarean, completely unassisted, true natural birth experiences that otherwise, if they believed that their bodies were truly broken and defective, they never would have got it. So that's what I'm going to leave you with, is that birth doesn't have to be painful. You're looking at this in a way that our society has basically said that natural birth is painful, horrible. You have to leave your dignity at the door. It's not that. So you're actually looking at major abdominal surgery that's going to cause you to have a lot more difficulties later. You may have complications. Even if the surgery itself isn't complicated, you could have pain after delivery. Versus completely beautiful, powerful, empowering natural birth experience, like how I'm going to be describing it in later videos, how I've described it in a crash course to natural birth, how I've described it when I talk about home birth, that you're going to come out the other side and say, I want to do that again, because you're going to get this oxytocin high afterwards, and you're going to feel so powerful, and you're going to feel so connected to your body and to your baby, and you're going to realize just how not scary, not traumatic, and empowering natural birth can really be. All right, so that's all I have for you today. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Tell others about it, and I will see you soon.